hidden floors full of banned Soviet books that nobody's been allowed to touch since the Cold War, a British basement safe stuffed with titles so legally risky the library keeps them locked away, and an Australian poison cabinet so secret they won't even tell you where the room is. These are mysterious libraries with books no one is allowed to read. In the Soviet Union, almost every major library had something called a spetskrat, which means special storage. These were entire rooms, sometimes entire floors, full of books the government decided were just too dangerous for people to read. Anything that contradicted the official narrative went in there. Trotsky's books after he got exiled, philosophy the state didn't like, religious texts, books by Russians who left the country, a whole bunch of scientific papers. If it didn't fit with what the Communist Party wanted people to believe, it just disappeared into special storage. To see anything in there, you needed clearance from the first department. It was basically the secret police office inside the library. Most people had no idea these rooms even existed. Even researchers who knew about them rarely got permission, and when they did, everything they read was monitored and recorded. A lot of this stuff still exists too. When the USSR collapsed, some libraries moved these books back onto regular shelves, but a lot of places just kept them locked up because nobody knew what was still supposed to be secret. So there are still these Cold War rooms sitting in Russian libraries full of banned books, with the same locked cabinets from 40 years ago. The British Library has millions of books, but there's this collection that doesn't show up when you search their catalog. It's called the Suppressed Safe Collection. They used to keep these books in safes and locked cupboards in the basement, and no, they're not locked away because they're cursed or whatever. They cause legal problems. Some of them are considered too provocative and rebellious. Other books have been banned under obscenity laws. Things that violate copyright or could get the library sued for defamation are in there. Some got flagged by the government, others got pulled after publishers complained, and some are still restricted today. You can request them as a researcher, but the library doesn't make it easy, and they definitely don't advertise what's in there. A lot of catalog entries are deliberately vague. You'll see a book listed and then notice this weird access note that basically says, you can't see this. For most people visiting the British Library, this collection might as well not exist. It's in there somewhere, but unless you've got a specific reason and the right paperwork, you're never getting near it. The National Library of Australia has something called a Giftschrank, which is a German word for a locked poison cabinet. ABC News actually reported on this. Over 200 books are in there, and the library won't even tell you where the room is. The books inside got pulled for different reasons: biographies that could be considered defamatory, true crime books about ongoing legal cases, guides on topics like euthanasia that got the library in trouble before. Unlike other restricted collections, you cannot request these. Not as a regular person, anyway. Most staff can't even access them. Even the catalog entries sometimes barely tell you anything about why the book was even locked away. The term comes from German libraries that used to lock up books they thought were poisonous or socially dangerous. Australia just copied the idea. Because Australia has really strict defamation and privacy laws, some of these books will probably stay locked up for decades. Next up is the chained library at the Hereford Cathedral in England. The books are literally chained to the shelves. See, before the printing press, books were incredibly expensive. A single book could cost as much as a house, so if you wanted to have a library that people could actually use, you had to just chain the books down or they'd get stolen. Most places got rid of their chains once books became cheaper to make, but this place has just kept theirs. The collection has hundreds of rare manuscripts and early printed books, medieval encyclopedias, early medical texts, religious manuscripts older than most modern countries. You can visit and see the room, but you're not touching these books, for obvious reasons, mainly because these are delicate artifacts. If a scholar needs to study something, they have to arrange it ahead of time and do it under supervision. For alarm systems, this was how you protected your knowledge, and this is one of the only places left where you can see that system exactly as it worked hundreds of years ago. Amsterdam has this incredible private library called the Bibliotheca Philosophica Hermetica, or the Ritman Library. It was started by a Dutch collector named Joost Ritman, who spent decades collecting books on alchemy, hermeticism, and other mystical stuff. The collection now has over 25,000 books. Some of them go back to the 1400s. Getting access is really hard. You need some serious academic credentials, or you need to prove you've done real research into esoteric study. They want people who are there for serious study, not just because they think occult books are kind of cool. A lot of these books were actually forbidden at some point. People used to copy them by hand in secret to avoid getting arrested or worse. For scholars studying Western esotericism, this is one of the most important collections in the world. For the rest of us, it's just completely off limits. There's a magical order in Germany called the Fraternitas Saturni. It was founded in the early 1900s, and over the decades they built this private archive of ritual books, diaries, and letters. They even have letters exchanged with Aleister Crowley in there, a super famous occultist for those not in the know. The archive is completely closed to outsiders. Only members who've reached a certain level in the order can access it, and even they have rules about how long they can look at stuff and whether they can take notes. Historians outside the order have basically zero access, so most of what's in there has never been studied. You've got ceremony instructions, personal magical diaries where people wrote down their experiments, unpublished grimoires, ritual texts, and what's really cool is this is what's known as a living archive, because the order still uses this stuff. It's not like most of the other stuff on this list that just sits there for the sake of preserving history, so that's pretty cool. In Paris, the Grand Orient de France, which is the oldest and largest French Masonic organization, has the Museum of Freemasonry, which you can visit, but you can't visit the library and archives, which has old books on alchemy, step-by-step guides on rituals, that sort of thing, and some of them are hundreds of years old. Scholars can sometimes get access, but it's very selective. Even among Masons, certain materials are restricted based on what degree you've reached or what committee you're on. Unsurprisingly, there are tons of conspiracies surrounding this place, but officially, the public can't access these books because there are only single copies of a lot of them. Some of the manuscripts were collected in the 17 and 1800s and never published, so the only copies exist in this one library. And forget about all the big formal libraries. There are said to be tons of hidden ones only small handfuls of people will ever see. Private occult collections that aren't made public at all. Most people only know about them through references and research papers about secret societies or cults. Some require you to be initiated into something, others are controlled by collectors who only trust a handful of scholars. This is stuff like unpublished grimoires, magical diaries, letters between occultists, early manuscripts on alchemy and hermeticism, and that's just the occult stuff. I mean, who knows what else is in some of these libraries. A lot of this has never been digitized or copied, so if you don't have clearance, it basically doesn't exist. Unlike a national archive or university library, these operate completely under the radar, no public catalog, no digitization, often no formal record of what's even in them. Somewhere the Book of the Dead is in one of those libraries. There's also what's called shadow libraries. Library Genesis, Sci-Hub, Anna's Archive, Z Library, these aren't physical locations, they're websites with academic papers, books, and research that's normally locked behind paywalls. So they operate in a bit of a legal gray area. Universities and publishers spend millions controlling access to journals and academic research, and these websites just bypass all of that and host millions of files for free. You can find some of the latest research, rare out-of-print books, technical manuals that would otherwise be impossible to get. Downloading from them is usually not legal, and governments have tried shutting them down over and over, but it's the internet, so new ones keep popping up. And of course, couldn't do this list without mentioning the Vatican Secret Archive, now called the Vatican Apostolic Archive. Sounded way cooler before, but they changed it in 2019. Doesn't matter anyway, because getting inside is still almost impossible. This place has been collecting documents for 1,200 years. Papal letters, contracts with kingdoms, account books, diplomatic messages, every important piece of paper that passed through the Catholic Church's hands. You have to be a qualified scholar, apply months ahead, and write a letter explaining exactly what you're researching if you ever hope to see this archive in person. Once you're inside, they're also watching your every move. There are no cameras allowed, no pens either, only pencils. They limit how many documents you can request per day, and here's the thing, they only show you stuff older than a certain date. Anything involving recent popes, modern politics stays blocked up. Some sections are completely off limits, entire rooms that no outsider has ever been inside. There are documents in there that maybe 10 people alive have ever seen. Most of what's in that building will never be made public. With all that said, I've been your host, James. I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.